Record on. Alrighty, the recording has started.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our panel, and we are just going to be having a theme of summer opportunities and preparing for the fall. And so we have these lovely panelists with us today, and we are going to start off our panel by asking them to introduce themselves with their name, where they're from, their major, and some school involvement that they're involved in. And we're going to start with Maya, Kamil, and then Marie.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Maya. I'm from San Diego, California, but I've lived all over the world. For example, Belgium. I did my high school there. My major is history, and I'm doing a double minor in linguistics and book and media studies. And I'm currently serving as the mentorship coordinator and president of the St. Mike's Residence Council.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Kamil. I'm in my third year specializing in finance and economics in the Rotterdam Commerce program. Originally born in India, but I grew up in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And so pretty much grew up there and I'm now here. My involvement in U of T, so it pretty much expands from both in SMC and in my Rotterdam Commerce program, where with Maya, I'm part of the St. Mike's mentorship program as well as a senior mentor. And I'm also part of, I'm going to be the incoming VP of Finance for Smitsu. At the same time in Rotman, I'm also the director of events for the Rotterdam Commerce Students Association.
Hi everyone, I'm Marie. I'm French and currently living in France. I'm back home with my parents, but I've lived in the US and in India as well. I'm a third year doing a specialist in immunology and a minor in physiology. And in terms of involvement within SMC, I've been a mentor for the past 2 years now. And I'm also involved in a bunch of other sports clubs outside of SMC.
Awesome.
All right, those were all great introductions. We are now going to ask some questions, and there will be a chance at the end if you have any final messages to send to future or current students in regards to summer opportunities and preparing for the fall. So for our first question is when a student wants to get involved in the next school term, how do you suggest they balance school and extracurriculars? And we will be going through the order of Maya, Kamil, and then Marie.
Oh, okay. So I think the best thing to do is to figure out your time management. So I have a weekly calendar that I try to set up with all of the extracurriculars I want to do and all the hours I want to put into it, along with the study time and then also my lectures, along with review time for my lectures as well. And I think that's really important to have, so you know how much time you have in your week and how much time you want to be investing in your extracurricular activities. And then also just like you can sign up for a lot of extracurriculars as well, and then narrow it down as you go throughout the year or throughout the month after extracurricular signups.
Yeah, and I think Maya pretty much hit most of the points there, but one thing I'll pretty much reiterate is pretty much that whole scheduling and planning ahead. Like in fact, right now, even like I have like a whiteboard right here with like all stuff I have to do. And I really stress that because the big thing is as you go into whichever year you're in, will always be the conflict you have, whether you want to like do something for this club right now or study for this exam. And so pretty much to avoid having that conflict, the big key is pretty much planning ahead and having a calendar or a whiteboard or whatever you use, whatever method you use to make sure you're aware of the things coming up in the upcoming week or bi-weekly basis and so on and so forth. Because once you have a plan, it's a lot easier to execute than to just do things on a whim. So definitely a big thing is if you want to be heavily involved and also make sure your academics don't suffer, a plan or a rough plan, having an idea of how things are going to go along with a calendar is very important.
Right, and I think I just want to touch up on another point that Maya briefly mentioned is like not overcommitting at the start of the year, because there's a lot of really exciting clubs and you sort of want to try out everything. But it's important to realize that, you know, it's first year, there's going to be a period where you're going to need to adapt. And so just, you know, being aware that you can definitely trial clubs. There's always a trial period. And that's really important to do so you can decide which clubs you really want to invest your time into and which clubs you'd rather have a more casual involvement with.
Awesome. Thank you. Our next question is, what do you think is a challenge unique for international students, and how have you overcome or been working to overcome that challenge?
All right, so I guess I'll answer that first. And I think looking back at my experiences, one of the big challenges I had, I'd say, was definitely just adjusting to how big and important extracurricular experience is really, because I came from a background where just grades mattered, and so and grades do matter, but coming here I realized that in the end grades are just like a like a check mark. You still have to be involved and really do other things per se. You can't just study for your courses, because you can, but like you're not able to grow. There's so much more growth for you to do outside of just academically. And so I think a big issue for me really, which could be depending on which background you come from, was really opening myself up to be involved in extracurriculars. And so I remember in my first semester especially, I was very hesitant to get involved. And even when I wanted to, I wasn't quite sure how to, because I never had these different clubs back in my high school. And so I didn't really understand to the range of how impactful they can be and how much more responsibility you can have per se. So I think one thing which I slowly started to learn more and more as I got through my first year was really the different types of clubs and activities and roles you can undertake, and how exactly you can get involved and how helpful it can be too. So yeah.
Right, that's actually a really good point. For me, I guess the biggest hurdle was being overwhelmed a lot, especially, for international students, it usually means leaving your home country, going to a country that you're not necessarily familiar with. And so adding that on top of, being involved, as Kamil said, and, just living on your own plus academics, it's something that's really stressful and really hard sometimes. And so I think, the biggest thing that helped me, and that, I'm still working on it, obviously, everyone's always a little bit overwhelmed sometimes, but it's just taking things one at a time, having a planner, planning things out really helps. Um, and also having really good support systems. So finding friends, finding study groups, finding extracurriculars can help too in managing your time, planning time for certain activities. Um, and so just, taking everything one step at a time, not rushing into extracurriculars or rushing into just academics. Taking the time to really plan out your year was really important for me.
And I think Marie touched on it really greatly, is the support system. It's really important what I found is it's really important to have a support system at school, through the extracurriculars, through your friends, here, but then also it's really important to stay connected back at home. So making sure that you find time in your week or in your month to call your family and your friends back home to make sure that you're still getting the support you need from them, because that's just as important as finding support here at university. And then another thing that I found challenging was like getting used to the culture here. There are a lot of things that are socially acceptable here versus other places that I've lived, and vice versa, where things that are appropriate there are not appropriate to do here. And things like that were stuff that I had to get used to, along with the language. Some of the, I don't know, Toronto lingo is a little confusing at first, but I think you end up getting a hang of it. But that's something else I found challenging. And then making sure, again, that you are balancing yourself and taking time for yourself. I know it's really exciting to be in a new place and meeting all these new people, but it's also important to take care of yourself and have self-care like once a day for like an hour. It's really, really important, at least, just so you can help yourself recharge and get ready to move forward and progress in university.
Those were all really great responses. All right, question number 3. What types of summer opportunities should students keep their eyes out for that are offered at U of T and or beyond? And what are your plans for the summer once the semester is over?
Right. Well, the good thing with U of T is that there's so many opportunities, like no matter what you're into, really, there's always something that you could potentially find interesting. So I know I'm really in the life sciences, and there's a lot of research programs at or around U of T that are available in the summer. And, a lot of people think that first years don't really have a chance or shouldn't apply because there's so much competition, but it's definitely really important to try anyways, because there's, so many opportunities, so many different paths that you could take for the summer in terms of like the summer research opportunities at least. And it's really important, to apply or try to get your foot in the door. And there's really, I think, something for everyone. So there's, for every department at least, there's a type of department sponsored research opportunity. There's also like so many hospitals around the Toronto campus, like Sick Kids, there's the St. Michael's research program. So there's really a lot of opportunities out there.
I think it's my turn now, right? Okay. Yeah, so definitely agree with Marie. There's also other things like summer courses that you can take. And with those summer courses, you have the opportunity to do work study positions through the university, which can be really helpful. It can help you work with a specific faculty or with a specific department, which can help again with that experience, especially if you're in like humanities or life science or humanities or social science where there isn't labs or research to do, but it's still a lot of fun, and like you can find this on Clinics, which hopefully will be a different tutorial at some point to figure out how to go through there, but it's a really helpful site and provides a lot of opportunities. And then there's also jobs here in Toronto, but that's something that you have to make sure that your visa aligns with as well. So to make sure that you're eligible to work in these different opportunities. A lot of the time you are, but you can find, it's really easy to find service jobs or to find things like private tutoring if you speak a different language, or if you want to teach English as well. That's something that's available online and in person. In terms of what I'm doing for the summer, I'm currently enrolled in 2 summer courses for the first beginning. Or for the first semester. And then I'm also planning on doing a few extracurriculars like SMICSU. I'm going to be prepping for my role there. And then also orientation is going on, which is going to be super fun. Make sure that you sign up for it. And then that's basically what my summer is. And then also probably teaching English to as a second language to students. As a side note for visa information, I think there's definitely a site for it, but you can look it up, and also you can look up the type of visa that you want, and there's probably information on the U of T site about what type of visa you need for these different things, and you can look it up as well as the different visa classifications, and you can just open up your passport and there should be a type there, and you can look that up and see what that allows you to do.
All right. So most of the opportunities have already been mentioned by Marie and Maya, but just to kind of reiterate, obviously you have those research opportunity programs, and then you have those work studies. I definitely want to just reiterate those again, especially because if you're one of those first year or second years from the summer who are potentially doing just one course or maybe one or more, definitely look into work studies because there's hundreds of them, and many of them oftentimes don't get filled simply because students aren't aware of them. So definitely, if you're doing a summer course especially, or if you're considering doing one, definitely consider doing a work study as well. That way you get some good work experience as well. And just kind of like reiterate again, the eligibility is you can do just one course. So literally just as long as you have 0.5 credit, you're eligible for work study, at least for that half summer term. And then if you have a full year course, then for the full term. But what else I said, I want to go specifically into finance. And though right now it is pretty much April, so most of these opportunities are done, but definitely for, let's say, next summer, or even if, like, say, for the fall, if you want to work part-time, there are hundreds of different internships that are available, and the best way to find these out will be through platforms like, first of all, starting off, like, if you're in Rotman like me, you have the Rotman Commerce Portal, but also if you're just a UFE student, you can also find them on the CLNX website as well. And then also outside you have Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn. Many of these jobs platforms are still posting jobs even right now. And so definitely, if you're in finance or just anyone in the commerce field and want to get a good internship or just a job relevant to that field, you can definitely look up those platforms and hopefully apply there. At the same time, I'd say you can, well, what else you can also do is there's also a variety of mentorship programs too, which going on right now, because right now, for the most part, many workers professionals are generally free to help out. And so same thing, if you check out CLNX or any of those job platforms, outside of jobs, they also offer mentorship programs. So over the summer, you get a chance to be mentored by someone in the industry right now. That's exactly what I'm doing right now as well, where I'm part of this mentorship program where I get a chance to interact with somebody in the finance field and accordingly learn from their experience per se. At the same time, of course, definitely a bit of a plug, but if you're an upper year, definitely get involved in orientation. It's a lot of fun, and it also just helps you kind of like like give back per se. That's something that I'm doing too this year, where alongside obviously preparing for my SPIC2 role, I'll also be involved in planning for orientation for the upcoming year. And so one thing I will say is obviously you can be involved in these different internships, jobs, research opportunities, and so on and so forth. But also there are many non-for-profits also hiring or just looking for volunteer positions. And honestly, the best way to find them would simply just be Googling them, because if you Google them, you'll find them on those platforms. And so accordingly, make sure you look out for that too. So then that way, if you just want to like help out the community, that's another way to help out too. And it'll all be virtual too. So even if you say not in Toronto, that's totally fine. I'm pretty sure you can. We're in lockdown, so nothing's in person here anyway. So those would be another few areas to get involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, my next question is actually inspired by one of my international student committee members. And she wanted to know, what tips do you have for preparing for interviews and making yourself marketable, whether that's in interviews or on your resume?
It's a really great question. So in terms of prepping for interviews, it's really important to look up your job, look up the employers, and then also look up kind of the goals of the company or the organization you want to work for. By doing that, you can kind of hone in your interest and your answers to fit what the job needs. It's also important to relax during your interview. I know it's really daunting to be, grilled on your experience or your interests or things like that. But taking time for yourself to prep for it and just calm down. And then during the interview, just making sure to breathe and talk slowly and to relax. Those are things that are really, really important because you'll come off as a more easygoing person, and you'll come off as being more well thought out. So that's important in terms of prepping for the interviews. And then another thing that I think is really important for the resume is what I have like a master resume where I put down every single one of my experiences, so that's like work experience, volunteer experience, leadership experience, and then any sort of certifications I have as well. So I have all of that down on one list along with the years and kind of descriptions for each of them. And then I modify my resume, and then I take that and I modify it to make sure that that fits with the company goals or organization goals. And then in terms of making yourself marketable, again, just breathe during your interview and then also smile, because you want to make sure that you're showing that you're going to be passionate and excited for this job opportunity.
Yeah, some great points there by Maya, and I'll just pretty much build upon what she's pretty much said, where she already made some great points. I think one thing also is I always make a note of pretty much any job or opportunity I apply for, that before I do or before the interview, I make sure to speak to someone currently in that role or who knows a good amount about that role. And so we spoke about how you need to like do your research for this position, but then make sure you know exactly what's happening. And so the best way to do that is to speak to someone like, pretty much in that role. There's no better way than to get first-hand experience of exactly what this role will be about. And so definitely one big tip would be to find out if you can through your connections or just pretty much looking it up through the website if it's an official job, whoever's working there. And I think just kind of like bring it in a frame of an official job. Definitely say, for example, on LinkedIn, what you can do is say you're applying to a company and you can search up pretty much like the company, and then you can see if there's any alumni from either you from University of Toronto, and accordingly you can message them, be like, hey, I'm applied for this position, I noticed we're both in U of T, I'd love to get your advice. A simple message like that, and for the most part they'll always answer because alumni are always happy to help out the current students. So that's like in a more official term, but just in general, definitely one big tip would be speak to the person who's in that role and knows about it. Really build up your knowledge about that. And also one thing that also helped me was I'd make an Excel file with like prospective questions and how I would answer them. And obviously in the beginning it's hard to make it because if it's your first ever interview, but as you do more and more interviews, you keep on recording questions you've been asked and accordingly make note of how you would have better answered them and so on and so forth, because you'll notice, especially for those behavioral interviews, that there'll be a central theme where they want to know about your key leadership, teamwork, or communication skills per se. So a great way to like practice as you keep on doing more interviews is to have a small like file where you note those questions down along with prospective answers. Don't have a detailed answer where you like memorize the script, because I think Maya mentioned it, be yourself, be natural. You don't want to seem robotic or scripted, but having this kind of gives an idea in your mind where you'll be less likely to be thrown off by a question because you have an idea of what you want to say. And finally, the last one I want to mention is make sure when you want to appear marketable, make sure when you do research that you show them that you've done that research per se. I think a big thing is people do all this research or they show that they know this, but in the interview it never comes out. So whenever you're answering questions, if there's a way where you can add on an additional sentence showing how you've looked this up or you've spoken to someone, or like just peppering your answer with these small bits of work showing how like you didn't just apply for it, you actually applied and did your research, that shows to the interview the extra effort you go through and showing you've gone above and beyond for this role, and it'll obviously make them happy. And of course, if you know more about the interview themselves, that's always great. And a quick note about that, pretty much when you're looking at LinkedIn, almost everyone has a LinkedIn. So if you know the name of your interviewer, it's always a good idea to look at to look at their LinkedIn and know about their experiences and so on and so forth. It's okay. It's not even stalking. It's fine. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Cal's point about potential questions is really important, because a lot of the times it will be recurring themes, right? And so I think it's really important to have a couple key experiences where you showed, for example, leadership or how to resolve a conflict, and really think about those experiences and what they taught you. And in a way, these experiences, usually there's an overarching theme, and you can adapt how you talk about these experiences and what you learned from them to different questions. And so that way it makes it easier to, compartmentalize, this experience I learned, how to resolve conflict tactfully and peacefully. And so whenever you get a question talking about, let's say, conflict, you know that this experience really showed that you gained that skill. So it's important to definitely think about potential questions. And I think another really important thing is to realize that every experience potentially taught you something. So you don't need to have all these like really incredible extracurriculars or to have done lots of research or things like that. Even just like working a summer job part-time can teach you so much. And those are skills that employers will be looking for regardless. And you don't need to have gained them or obtained those skills through really important positions. And so that's important to remember. And it's important to reflect on your experiences and your jobs or work experience or volunteer experience and really dissect what you learned from these experiences.
All right, thank you guys for all like just answering great things about jobs, because we are all unsure in this crazy world we're in right now. So it is very helpful just to hear what you guys have to say. So next, what are some tips you would give an international student or domestic student about preparing for the new school year this fall?
Right. Oof, this is a tough question, like there's just so many factors to consider. But I think one of the main things will be, of course, I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now about whether it's going to be online or in person, maybe a hybrid version. But I'd say one thing for sure is keep an open mind. I think that's a big thing, like especially with the whole online thing. I know the incoming students this year felt that, and it's that you'll have this vision of what you think your first year will be, and some parts of it might actually happen, but it's also a good chance that the other parts might not. And so just keep an open mind. You might be surprised by a lot of things happening either here or through your experience, and you might be a little bit overwhelmed too. I think Marie touched upon it before too. And so just pretty much keep an open mind and know that you can get through it, because obviously you got accepted for a reason. And I think one issue I want to just quickly mention is the imposter syndrome. Everyone feels it. It's a very, very normal thing to feel. And so I think my biggest tip would be pretty much just always acknowledging the fact that you deserve to be here. You might feel that because it's because of the various different students here that you feel a little behind or unable to keep track. But just always remind yourself that you deserve to be here and that you can make it per se. I know that another big thing, pretty much like people struggle to really handle the course load per se. So I think a big tip, one final tip would be, especially if you come from it depends on which background you come from. Some people had, for example, the IB curriculum, which then you'll be fine. But if you've had a general easier curriculum, I think a big thing will be once September starts and October comes in, it goes really fast. Like you'll feel the semester go really quickly, and you'll have lots of midterms, deliverables, assignments, a lot of stuff peppered on your schedule, and you'll suddenly find your free time really just shortening. And so I think the big thing, pretty much my only tip if you're preparing would be make sure you're ready to go into it, because it can be quite overwhelming if you're not ready to devote yourself to whichever areas you go into. And so finally, yeah, let's make sure you can make sure you're ready to handle that. You might feel that imposter syndrome and be ready to tackle it. Make sure that you're mentally ready to take on the different challenges going to come up. And finally, of course, keep an open mind. University is a great experience, but it's going to be a lot of things that might throw you off. And so just, make sure you're ready for that to the best of your ability, and, keep surpassing your obstacles and take it in stride.
Yeah, those are great points. I think it's really important what Kamal said about being mentally ready, because to be honest, if it's your first year, there's not really so much that you can prepare in advance. So the biggest thing I would say is definitely plan out your courses and plan out your gear. So the best way to mentally prepare is obviously to have a plan and to know what's going to happen. So, connecting with maybe older students or people that or even just friends, talking through your plan and what you want to do is really important to help you, reach whatever goals you have for the year. And it's also important to, if you need help, there's registrars, there's lots of potential help available. And planning courses is hard, but it doesn't have to be so stressful and so hard. So definitely reach out before deadlines, plan out ahead what you want to do. But I think, as I said, there's not so much you can do. So definitely just enjoy your summer. That's really an important way to prepare. And yeah, just have fun and be ready for the school year.
Yeah, those are all really good points, Kamil and Marie. Adding on to that, yes, time is really important, and making sure that you have time for yourself to relax, because like they said, the school year goes really, really quickly and you start really, really quickly. So planning out to make sure that you have time before school starts to just relax, and then also having time to plan out your courses. And you can do that through the registrar or an academic advisor, which is really helpful. Another thing is, if you are an incoming first year student, you also have the mentorship programs that are available to you with really, really great mentors, such as Marie. And it's really amazing. It's a really amazing opportunity to be able to connect with an upper year student, and you can hear about their personal experience. And often you're paired with students that are in your program or have similar interests, which can really help you connect to the university environment. Another thing is that, again, make sure that your visa is sorted out. If you are coming to Toronto, the last thing you want is to come to Toronto, get to border control, and then be sent back because there's something wrong. So make sure that you have that sorted out, along with housing and kind of packing, making sure that you have that also figured out. There's a lot of really great lists online that can help you prepare to move overseas, with figuring out what are essentials that you need to bring and what are some sentimental things that might also be important to help you adjust to life in a different country. And then lastly, I think it's also really important as an international student to kind of be connected with your cultural clubs. There's over 200 of them on campus, so I'm sure you can find one of them to connect with, but it's nice being able to connect with people that share a similar culture or background to you. So those would be kind of my advice for tips for international students. And of course, as always, keep an open mind. Anything can happen next year. And so it's really important to be able to, as much preparation as you're doing and as much as you want to get involved, also be flexible with your time and be flexible with yourself, because there's a lot of changes in university, and that's perfectly okay.
Thank you. I really love how thorough all of your answers are. And now we're moving into our final question. So we were chatting about this question beforehand, that it's been really difficult to make friends. And so do you have any advice or suggestions that are applicable for making friends online or possibly in person if we do have hybrid this fall?
So it's obviously hard, but the best way is to just put yourself out there. I know in person it can be a little easier if you're on residence, meeting people or even just within clubs. But it's important even online to just try things out. If you don't like it, you can always stop, but there's so many clubs out there that are just waiting to recruit, right? And there's just so many for so many different interests. There has to be one that you'll fit into and that you will love and that you'll want to invest your time in. And so it's so important to just try it out, just go out, meet people, meet even just study groups. There's so many recognized study groups or things like that. And I have mentees who told me, they met some great friends through study groups. So really there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just putting yourself out there and just trying to make friends, trying to connect with people.
For sure. I definitely agree with that. And I was going to touch upon those registered study groups, which are really important because that's another way that you can meet people. Those would be people in the same class as you, and you just sign up and you can study with them. But it's not only the study part, you can also socialize with them as well, which is really nice to meet people that have similar interests with you. And then also everyone's looking to make friends. Like, just don't be scared. Make sure to put yourself out there and just relax, because you will find your group of people, whether that's online or in person. Like Marie was saying, it's obviously a lot easier to connect with people in person because you can see them face to face, but also online when you're in Zoom calls or you're in events, like, don't be scared to put your camera on, because that's nice for people to be able to recognize you and see you and not just see a blank screen. So I definitely suggest doing that as well.
All right, so most of the answers have been already answered or given, so there's not much for me to say, but there's actually a few things I will add on. And I think one thing is pretty much, especially if you're a first year, there's these things called the first year learning community. And so if you're an incoming first year student, then you'll get an email about it soon. But if you don't, just look it up, or you can reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about it. But essentially how this works is you have these bi-weekly sessions with people who are in the same program, in fact, in the same lecture as you sometimes. And they're run by two upper year mentors, and they cover a variety of topics. Sometimes it's just social, other times they're about your academic, like post, for example, or like a cutoff you need, and so on and so forth. I found that, for me personally, I found that pretty helpful because it's not a lecture, it's not a tutorial, it's just a session where you just meet people in the same program as you and you get to interact with them. Obviously it's online, so it's a little hard to do that, but I think Maya hit the point perfectly where, though it's a little awkward, turn on your video, turn on your audio. I'm sure if you take that first step, some people will be there to take the step with you. So definitely look into joining first year learning communities if you can. I'm pretty sure they're not available for every program, but they're available for many programs. Hopefully, I hope that your program is within those ones. I think outside of that, also Maya already touched upon in the previous question, was about cultural clubs. I look back at my previous experience and I mentioned how, I struggled to like be involved. And I think one thing which helped was the first student group I ever joined was the Muslim Student Association. Being a Muslim myself, obviously I didn't see that many Muslims here per se. And so it was nice to join this student group, and it felt a lot more natural for me to be able to make friends there. And so accordingly, there's a wide variety of cultural clubs from various cultures, religions, so on and so forth. I can guarantee you that if you want to meet somebody who has some sort of a similar background to you, there'll be a club for that. And so definitely you can look into that, and on like just simply by Googling. I think if you Google U of T student clubs, I'm pretty sure it'll show up, or later on we can attach a link to it, where essentially there's this website you can put, like, I think it's on ULife, where just organizations and all the full list is there. And so during the summer, if you want to like potentially see, or even when you're there in September, you can look through that list and see if there's any clubs which interest you, and accordingly that can help you make friends there per se. And I think one finally I'll say would be, if obviously this depends if you end up coming here, but I think another big portion for me was in my first year was residence life. A lot of the friends that I made was simply on my floor. And so even if it's going to be online and you're considering coming, let's assume the cost isn't a factor. I would recommend you come, because even though it's online, there was still quite a bit of residence life here where you can still get involved and meet different people. And so if you feel like you're able to come to Toronto, I'd encourage you to come, because first of all, the weather is pretty good right now as well. And second, just because there's a lot of good people here, even including myself and Maya, actually, who are here in residence right now as well. And so you get a chance to interact with not only people in your year, but upper years too, who are always happy to help out in any shape or form. And of course, we have some like fun events here too. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maya, Marie, and Kamil, for taking the time to answer these questions and film this video for our students. Do any of you have any last minute thoughts or advice you want to give before we wrap it up?
Sure, guys, don't stress. Like, I know it's really daunting whether you're moving to a new city or to a new country, but it will all work out. As stressful as it is, like, you do have support systems, and like, we are all here ready to support you. And so St. Mike's, so like, just like take a deep breath, relax, everything will turn out, and you're gonna have a lot of fun in university.
Thank you, Maya.
took the words out of my mouth. But yeah, basically just relax. It'll be fun. You'll find your friends, you'll find your people, and just enjoy the process because ultimately it's 4 years is really short. So just enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think one point before I do some of my final thoughts, I think what's important thing is being international. Sometimes English isn't your first language, and I can understand that when it can hinder your potential of meeting friends or like being comfortable enough to have that environment. So definitely, I really do encourage you to join these different cultural clubs because although it didn't apply to me, for example, I know friends who are in different clubs where like they speak in their native language and it just helps them kind of settle in nicely too. So I definitely do encourage that for those of you whose English is not as strong. Don't worry, that's totally normal here. I mess up sometimes myself as well, so it's totally fine. Don't worry, that's not a factor. You're definitely not going to be alienated by that. And yeah, my final thoughts would pretty much be I think Maya and Marie hit it perfectly. It's just that you're gonna worry about the future. It's natural. There's a lot of factors going on, especially in terms of like say, exams, friends, so on and so forth. And that's fine. That's normal. It's okay to feel that worry, but never let that overwhelm you because you have to enjoy that journey. I think Marie hit it perfectly. It's 4 years, it seems a lot, but trust me, once the year starts, it really does. It goes by really quickly. So make sure, like it's okay to worry for the future and plan for it, but you can but live in the present, enjoy that journey because trust me, it's one of a kind. You're all great for being accepted into U of T. It's a great journey and it'll be as great as long as you give it the time to enjoy that journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I feel so fortunate to be with the three of you who are such amazing students and leaders at St. Mike's. I'd also like to thank Rachel from Mentorship for helping me with this event and putting it together. So that's the end of our student panel. If you do have any questions, you can email us at SMIXU or DM Mentorship, and I'm sure someone will be more than happy to direct you or answer your question or direct you to someone like the registrar who can better answer your question. So with that, thank you everyone who's watching this video and thank you everyone who is here making this video.